Hello, welcome along to episode 141 of Adventures in Pop. My name is Simon Jacobs. Today, we're going to talk about story songs. I guess I better explain what I mean by a story song. But before I get into that, if you're enjoying this, do subscribe. I like subscribers. They're my favourite people, and I think you would be a really good subscriber. I mean, not everyone's allowed to, but I think you can. So just go ahead. That'd be great. Thank you. Story songs. It's an interesting kind of, subgenre of the singer-songwriter, I guess. But, over the whole of the last 50, 60 years of popular music, every now and again, songwriters have managed to kind of write a pop song that has a narrative, I guess, that isn't just doing the normal thing that a pop song does, which is I love you and I feel really good, or I love you but you don't love me so I feel really bad. That's not really a story song. Otherwise everything would be a story song, I guess, wouldn't it? I'm thinking more about those kind of songs that have things happening where there's a flow of events, and quite often the songwriter is going to be writing about people in the third person. They're not really writing about themselves, or if they are, they're disguising it in a third person narrative. Okay, so look, I better give examples of this, and where we're ending up here. You won't be surprised to know that I want to give you an example of a new song that I've written quite recently, which I'm a bit bewildered by. As actually I often am. I don't really quite know sometimes where these things come from. And I have written a story song, and it's either incredibly good or it's incredibly bad, and I'm not quite sure which one. It could be either of those, and I'm probably not best placed to decide which it is. So, as usual, I throw it open to you to let me know. But we'll come on to that in just a moment. Let's talk about famous examples of story songs first. So, shall we start with Jimmy Webb, who I've talked about before? Jimmy Webb, songwriter of Wichita Lineman, By the Time I Get to Phoenix, etc. In fact, By the Time I Get to Phoenix is a very good place to start, because that is a real classic story song. Why do I say that? By the Time I Get to Phoenix is a very spare and beautifully written story song that is basically saying, when you wake up, you'll find that I've left and I'm driving across the United States telling you where I am as I'm going, and you might think I'm coming back, but I'm not. That essentially is By the Time I Get to Phoenix. So what you hear is, by the time I get to Phoenix, by the time I get to Albuquerque, etc. So these places are named, and you could probably spot them along the map of the Midwest of the United States, and all the time it's in the context of you think I'm coming home again because I've done this before, but this time I'm going for real, and you're going to realise eventually. Quite brutal, actually, but beautifully done. And it's, I think I once counted the words of By the Time I Get to Phoenix. It's something like 110 words or something for the whole song. And in 3 minutes, you've got the whole story. And it is a really good story song. It's a very, very good example of that kind of genre. And in fact, The Highwayman, written by Jimmy Webb, is probably another very good example, where he's talking about characters in American history who all died, but in this song, their legacy, if you like, the ghost of them continues. Quite interesting. Quite a complex song, that one. There are other examples. I mean, I think Kate Bush is a very good proponent of the story song, because she's very good at putting herself into the third person. She's very good at being an actress, really, and taking on a character, taking on a different voice, and telling you about the world from their point of view. Now, that doesn't necessarily in itself make everything into a story song, but you know, Miss Bush is not averse to the odd kind of concept album type approach to writing music. If you look at that fabulous other side of The Hounds of Love, that is a whole kind of 20 minutes of a story, of one continuous story through different songs on that side of the album. I talk about it as if everyone's got a vinyl copy of The Hounds of Love. Obviously, everyone should have, but actually that's not really the case. So I'm talking about the second half of the album, which is the kind of the song cycle that takes us through this story. And it's a brilliant story, and it's simple, it's very compelling, it's kind of horrific, but fabulous. So she certainly did it in very happily, in a few times, in fact. But that's probably the most notable. Even Billy Joel, on the Stranger album, that the one that really catapulted him to fame back in the 70s, there is a long track on that album called "Scenes in an Italian Restaurant." That's a really good story song. It takes us through the story of Brenda and Eddie, who were still going steady. Brenda and Eddie, they're getting engaged, getting married, divorcing. It's kind of it's taking us through a whole several decades of people's lives, just in a few minutes, in 5 or 6 minutes. When it's done well, I think it's really interesting to be able to do that. So if you've got any great examples of story songs, then for goodness sake, let me know. I think Bob Dylan was another great proponent of the story song. And I'm not saying that every Bob Dylan song is a story. He just was, but he was obviously, very good with words. His thing was being incredibly poetic and creative about the way that he used words in his music, similarly to somebody like Leonard Cohen. But if you think about, Bob Dylan, an example that comes to mind would probably be something like Hurricane on the album Desire. That album I particularly like, and Hurricane, again, quite a long song, is the story of the true story of a serious police miscarriage of justice. With a boxer. It all really happened, and it's certainly worth listening to and finding out about it, because a very compelling story and very, very tragic to actually understand what the story is about. Okay, so why am I telling you all of this? Well, obviously, it's winter, it's coming up to Christmas. We like stories, and they help us through these difficult times. But specifically, it's because I've written a song called Singing Karaoke. Now, this is quite recent, so I'm very happy to share it with you. But as I say, I don't know whether this is going to grow on me and this will one day be a single on an album, or whether, having put it onto this video cast, that'll be the last that anyone ever hears of it, and I'll pretend that I never wrote it and we'll never talk about it ever again. So it could be either of those. And actually, I was just trying to think if I had written any other kind of narrative songs like this. I think there is a song called "You're Leaving Home." That's a narrative song. That is the song about a woman escaping in the middle of the night from her husband, who is asleep in bed, and she escapes with the help of a neighbour. That's, things happen in that song. Quite often, I've written something and I've said, even on here, I've said, I've got the song is, I like it, but nothing happens. That shouldn't be a criticism, but it is a comment on the fact that so many songs are quite static, and they're just describing an emotion, and that's absolutely fine. But I do quite like it when they can be more cinematic, or they can actually be about characters where something has changed by the end of the song from the beginning. Whatever it is, something subtle, something little. And it's got to be carefully done, because you've got to try and get something across in 3 minutes. And I suppose, like any story, the mark of success would be that somebody sort of cares about what happens to your characters between the beginning and the end of the song. I think that's quite hard to pull off. So Okay, so what have I got? This new song is called Singing Karaoke. Let me explain where this came from. I think what happened was I found myself working with a particular rhythm that I'd never used before. And genuinely, I found that quite exciting. It suggested to me the way that the music should go, the way the instruments should work, and off I was going, running along with this rhythm, because the rhythm was the thing that was driving it. I just hadn't worked on something like this before, so it was quite exciting. I just thought, oh, this is different. I love this. And before I knew where I was, I'd written this sort of story of a woman called Kirsty. If just in case you're wondering. Why Kirsty? I've got no idea. Anyway, so Kirsty is one of the protagonists. I'm singing the song, so from my point of view, but it's not real. I don't have a friend called Kirsty, and this song was made up. So there's nothing factual about this at all. So in the song, Kirsty enjoys singing karaoke. That's right. So she takes her friends into town. They all sing karaoke at some karaoke bar. But her friends don't realise that Kirsty is a brilliant singer. So one day she gets up to the microphone to sing her karaoke, and everyone's completely blown away by how brilliant she is. So next minute, Kirsty's joining a band, and then she's leaving home, and next minute she's famous, and it all stems back from this moment where there's a bunch of friends singing karaoke in town. And actually what the song is kind of saying is you Kirsty are far too good a singer to be wasting your time singing karaoke. That's essentially the song, and the story is Kirsty gets famous. Well, there we go. I've probably spoiled it for you now, but I'm going to play it to you. So let's leave today's episode. Just think of it as a Christmas gift from me. Oh, and one last thing before I go. My new single, My Imaginary Friend, is going to be out on Friday. And the video is on my last episode of Adventures. And, I would welcome you all to My Imaginary Friend out on Friday. Do listen and enjoy. Here's Singing Karaoke. See you next time.
Oh, it's obvious to me how you shouldn't be so low-key singing karaoke. She loves to sing, she takes her best friends in on a Friday night into town. Karaoke, that's what you told me. Don't be so lazy, just come on down. Because he starts to sing, you could drop a pin. I mean, how was anyone supposed to know? Karaoke, that's what you told me. It's a travesty that she's not in a West End show. Oh, it's obvious to me how you shouldn't be so low-key singing karaoke. You're a superstar, and oh, you will go far. You should never be singing karaoke. Joins the band, you see her off guitar in hand. On a Friday night she gets on the train. Oh, karaoke, are you kidding me? I wonder if we'll ever see her again. Cause it's on TV, that's no surprise to me. She's living her best life in LA. Oh, karaoke, you will remind me. You take me instantly back to that day. Oh, it's obvious to me how you shouldn't be so low-key singing karaoke. You're a superstar, yes, that's what you are. You should never be singing karaoke. Kirsty loves to sing, she takes her best friends in on a Friday night into town. Karaoke, that's what you told me. Don't be a misery, just come on down. it's obvious to me. Oh, you shouldn't be so low-key. Sing karaoke, you're a superstar. Oh, you will go far. You should never be. Sing karaoke. Oh, it's obvious to me. Oh, you shouldn't be so low-key. Sing karaoke, you're a superstar. Yes, that's what you are. You should never be. Sing karaoke. Oh, it's obvious to me. Oh, you shouldn't be so low-key. Sing karaoke. You're a superstar. Oh, you will go far. You should never be. Sing karaoke. Sing karaoke.